us to look briefly at how exposure comes. Last week, we ended on exposure. How does exposure come? One, exposure comes through physical presence. Physical presence. It means that physically exposing yourself to environments. I touched on that a bit last week. But the exposure comes through physical presence. So just like I said last week, let's say you head an institution or you head an organization, and you see another organization that is actually doing what you want to do, meaning that the organization's present is actually your future. You see your organization growing into a large organization like that organization. You can expose yourself physically to that environment. Now, where a working visit is possible, you can. Just by walking in the environment, there will be an expansion of your mind. Just by physical presence, just by walking into the place and seeing how things are done, seeing how the reception looks, it will challenge your mind. And like we said last week, one of the things it will do is it will bring a lot of ideas. It will stretch you. Because probably in your corner, you think you are doing so well till you physically get exposed to a different or another environment. So the first basic way we get exposed is through physical presence. Now, the advantage of physical presence is that it aids in capturing information through the basic human senses. So you get into a new place, you see what is going on, you hear what is going on, and it's very similar. If I want to use a Bible example, I can use someone like the Queen of Sheba. When the Queen of Sheba actually visited Solomon, 1 Kings chapter 10, she was very amazed at the things she saw. So what she did was she actually took a physical visit to go to the kingdom of Solomon, because she said she had heard of something. And when she came, she said, well, the half of it was not told me. So she physically, presently exposed herself to Solomon's empire. So one, physical presence. Pastoring a church, visiting other programs, visiting other churches, you'll be challenged. Now, two, exposure comes through reading materials. Reading materials. There are certain places you may not have the chance to physically go to, but you can actually read materials and get exposure through reading. Reading materials. Very good, necessary materials that are relevant to your area of expertise, that are relevant to your field. Now, in addition to reading materials, attending conferences and seminars is also very essential when it comes to exposure. You get exposed when you attend conferences and seminars. Now, one of the advantages of that is you see that you actually get to meet people from different backgrounds, people from different environments. So sometimes the exposure is actually to that environment you've gone for the seminar in. So let's say there's a seminar or a conference being organized by, let's say you're a pastor and it's being organized by a church, okay? Now, by attending the conference or the seminar, you realize that you actually be exposed to necessary information that will help the growth of your ministry or the growth of your corporation. But in addition to that, you get connected to other participants in that seminar or that conference. So let's say church A or ministry A is organizing a conference, and then I attend the conference, and then I meet Pastor B from church B and Pastor C from church C, and I get to fellowship with them in that seminar or that conference. By being in that environment and getting to meet up with Pastor B and Pastor C, I am actually exposing myself to their environments. Now, I may not have physically visited their corporation or their church, but just by meeting with them and interacting with them, it is a room for exposure. So conferences and seminars are very, very important. And then the final one I want to talk about is actually exposure through watching videos and listening to audios. Watching videos and listening to audios. So sometimes you may not have the chance to maybe physically visit a particular organization or a particular training program. You can actually have access to it by watching or by listening. Because you see, capacity is also communicated through words. So as you listen to people who think in a certain way, it will definitely influence the way you think. So watching videos and listening to audios are very important. So imagine a CEO of a company who listens to CEOs of other bigger companies. You will naturally catch something from them, the way they think, the way they solve problems, the way they handle situations. Probably you are going through a particular challenge in your organization or your institution, and you listen to someone going through something bigger. Now, when you hear the way they handle this, you realize that you get a lot of ideas as to how to handle your little challenge. Because you thought your challenge was so big. You thought your challenge was so big. So you actually realize that your challenge is not so big at all. So these are 4 basic ways of getting access to exposure.